Good morning, St. Louis. Welcome inside the mole hole. Can I say that? Is that allowed? I don't know that I can say that. Let's hope nobody important is listening. Well, no, we want everybody important to listen. I was thinking on my way into work this morning here at the show. And by the way, we welcome everyone listening over the air, KXOK 102.9 FM, KWRH 92.9 FM. Name another morning talk show that's on 2 St. Louis area radio stations in the morning. There's none. None. Also listening on, obviously, KXOK.org, right? KXOK.com, Radio STL, US Radio Network, STL Sport Zone. Hope you're checking that site out. And video, of course, on the Rock Webster and KXOK Radio YouTube channel. Odyssey, TuneIn, My Tuner. My goodness. I'm more in more places than Howard Stern. Now, can I make his money? Mark Langston, can I make his money? No, the answer is no. The show isn't that good. I was thinking on my way in today. It is, by the way, I also want to say, real quick, I'm just going to get serious real quick, just for 5 seconds. People yell at me sometimes when I try to get political. So I'm not going to get political. But another mass shooting in Maine, 16 people dead so far. They're telling everyone to shelter in place. And, of course, the narrative will be mental health. It won't have anything to do with guns. Meanwhile, this guy who clearly, he was in a facility for 2 weeks, clearly not mentally stable enough to own firearms to begin with. And then, of course, has a military-grade AR-15 that can fire 300 bullets in 30 seconds. We need that in America. And before anyone listening starts to yell at me about the Second Amendment, I have never once ever believed that we shouldn't own firearms. I am a Second Amendment believer, but it's got to be updated to our times. No one, when that bill was created 200 some years ago, thought we were going to have weapons that could fire bullets 300 at a time in 30 seconds with magazines and all that stuff. I mean, no civilian needs that weapon. And again, we lead the country by a large margin, lead the world in mass shootings because, God forbid, we update the Second Amendment to match today's times. And it's sad. Another 16 people and probably more dead because we can't, because the gun lobbyists pay our politicians so much money. Unbelievable. Makes me sick. It's disgusting. And how do we get out of it? Especially since the House just elected some, the speaker who is a January 6th supporter and a believer that the last election was stolen and believes 100% no matter what to take abortion rights away from women. This is the guy we're putting as the speaker. I don't know where this country is headed. It's and I don't know how to get out of it. But this, another mass shooting. And the story will be, well, this guy had mental health issues. And he did, which is why he shouldn't have owned an AR-15 to begin with. I'm that's it. That's my rant. Okay. And again, thoughts out and to the families and friends of the people that were needlessly gunned down because we can't make smart decisions in this country. All right. I was also thinking on my way in, back to more positive thoughts. This might be, and I've said it before, I think. This is like and maybe springtime, but I'll say it. This might be the best time of year for sports. You've got college football in the middle of their seasons, NFL football is really a storyline every week. Major League Baseball, we just had 2 Game 7s in the League Championship Series, and now it's headed to the World Series. By the way, with 2 teams, the Rangers and the Diamondbacks, who were 100 lost teams 2 years ago, both in the World Series. You've got the NBA for those who love the NBA starting, college basketball around the corner, and for those here in St. Louis, MLS playoffs. Now, normally, the Cardinals would be in the playoffs, so now you would be talking Mizzou with a special season, Cardinals playoffs, St. Louis Blues starting, MLS soccer in the playoffs. This time of year would be madness for the St. Louis sports fan. By the way, 8:30, speaking of Blues, we're going to talk to Kurt Price from Let's Go Blues Radio and talk a little Blues hockey with him at 8:30. Always a great guest, knows his stuff, and we'll chat with him about the Blues start to the season. But seriously, think about that. If the Cardinals, which they normally do, were in the playoffs, you would have had MLS St. Louis City in the playoffs, Mizzou football 7-1, Cardinal baseball in the playoffs, and the Blues kicking off their season. For our region, and maybe around the country, I think all of these sports overlapping at this time of year, it's the best time to be a sports fan. Plus, you've got great storylines in the NBA. You guys know clearly I'm not a huge NBA fan. I've become a bigger NBA fan because of my son. He loves the NBA. But that season is underway. What a great time of year. Every night now for, let's say, the next month, there's going to be something cool and fun and exciting to watch between all the different sports playing at the same time. Wow. I love it. And how great is it in St. Louis City's first year? Not only do they make the playoffs and they're the number 1 seed, which far exceeded anybody's expectation, shocked MLS. We get to play Sporting KC in the first round of the playoffs. St. Louis versus Kansas City in the first round of the MLS playoffs? How can it get any better than that? I remember the summer before, last summer, I went to a Sporting KC game, and the Sporting KC public address announcer allowed me access into the press box. I got to follow along with game day because I was anticipating that I might get a shot to audition for public address for St. Louis City. Of course, that didn't happen. They just handed it to somebody. But I thought that I might have an opportunity to audition, right? So I went to a Sporting KC game on my own. John Dale is their public address announcer. What a great guy. Fantastic guy and a really good PA announcer. But anyway, I went to Sporting KC. And he and I chatted throughout the game for about 15, 20 minutes just on the fact that Sporting KC and St. Louis City were now both in the MLS and how cool that rivalry could become because it's Kansas City and St. Louis. And it's already here, 1 season in. Sporting KC, they've got people who they call themselves the soccer capital. Kansas City calls themselves the soccer capital. St. Louis has been known for decades and decades as not only a hotbed for soccer, but a funnel and a pipeline for professional soccer players. You're talking decades. And it's well known. Like you get other teams, teams that come in to play, and you read articles and stuff, and there are American-born soccer players that say, it's about time St. Louis got an MLS team. That's been a soccer hotbed for generations. dating back to I think it was in the 70s when St. Louis U played SIUE in the Bronze Boot at Busch Stadium, and I think sold it out, or it was either close or it was close. So this has been a soccer hotbed, and make no mistake, one of the soccer hotbeds in the country for decades. And so then, of course, the St. Louis soccer fan gets all bent out of shape because Sporting KC bills Kansas City as a soccer capital. And here in St. Louis, we're like, oh, no. Hold on a second. And that sort of budded when we got our team. Then St. Louis sent about 5,000, I think, fans showed up in Kansas City to go to the Sporting KC STL City game. And that created kind of a stir in Kansas City. And so now it's going to get to a fever pitch. Look, St. Louis and Kansas City, always city rivalries, always. Dating back even into the 80s with the 85 World Series, Cardinals and Royals, the I-70 World Series. There is a rivalry between the cities, and trust me, it's not overblown. People who go, well, they don't really have sports that play each other all that often and blah, blah, blah. I went to Mizzou. In Columbia, it's half Kansas City sports fans and half St. Louis sports fans. The rivalry is real. There's a city rivalry between the two cities. And now this soccer rivalry is about to take a 100% up. It is gonna pedal to the metal, 0 to 100, playoff MLS soccer between Kansas City and St. Louis. Oh, I can't wait for it. Sunday is going to be a fabulous day. By the way, let me give you the schedule real quick. Right here on KXOK Radio, the Spanish broadcast, we've got 9 o'clock this Sunday. Game 2 of the 3-game series will be in Kansas City on November 11th. Or no, November 5th. And that is a 4 p.m. kick between City and Sporting KC. And then if game 3 is necessary, it'll be back here in St. Louis, 5 o'clock on November 11th. You can hear all the action, Spanish broadcast, Spanish language broadcast right here on KXOK. For those, if you're not going to be at the games, of course. So, oh man, and by the way, Sunday's going to be phenomenal. I've got plans on Saturday, which means I plan on sleeping in a little bit on Sunday. And then Sunday, it'll be, for me, a nice relaxing day. The weather's supposed to turn ugly this weekend, cold and rainy. I'm gonna make a big crock pot full of chili or soup or meat, something I'm making on Sunday. Something manly. And then I'm going to watch NFL football, the red zone all day. Take a little break then, maybe take a nap. And then 9 o'clock, St. Louis City and Sporting KC. And it's on free TV Sunday night, FS1. So I can't wait. I can't wait. So excited. All right. Let's get back to what I mentioned earlier about the Rangers and Diamondbacks. 2 seasons ago, 100 lost teams. Their path to getting to this point a little bit different. The Rangers spent a lot of money, which the Cardinals are not going to do. The Diamondbacks overhauled their roster with depth in their minor leagues and trades. So I think the Cardinals could do, because everyone says, well, how long are we going to be in this funk? We're not going to be in a 90-loss team funk for very long. I don't even think we'll be that bad next year. I do think it'll take 2 years for them to get back to the playoffs, though. You've got a lot to overhaul with that pitching staff, a lot. I'll give you an example. Out of there were 38 pitchers that threw innings for Arizona in 2021. Only 4 pitchers are left from that roster. Completely overhauled the pitching staff. So that can happen. It can happen. it'll take a couple of seasons. There is no way the Cardinals are going to overhaul this entire pitching staff in 1 year. It's not going to happen. But they can get better next year. There's no doubt about it. They have a core. And by the way, I'm going to throw this out there. You look at some of these teams in the postseason, and yeah, there's a little shuffling that goes on, I think, in the lineups. But for the most part, these teams that have gotten this far, they play the same 9 almost every night. They don't shuffle fielders every night. They don't move a second baseman to shortstop and then to center field like the Cardinals do with Tommy Edman. They don't move around a guy like Brendan Donovan every single night. If you have a player like that, it's one guy, right? It's one guy you kind of shuffle around to get him in the lineup, not 3 or 4 guys. It's no wonder the Cardinals defense took a hit, and it's no wonder that they experienced a few more injuries than normal. Pick your starting 9 and run with it. Let's go, right? So the way I look at this for the Cardinals, you want to talk about who's on the trading block, who's out there that you could trade to go get some pitching. This is how I look at the starting 9 next year. Wilson Contreras and Andrew Knizner are your catchers. If Contreras isn't catching, he's DHing. There's 2 guys right there. And by the way, Knizner is so good defensively. If there's a team out there that'll give you a good young arm to get a good, solid defensive catcher, I think Knizner's got to be on the block. And quite frankly, if someone wants Contreras to be their DH and they'll take that contract off your hands, I'd look at that as well. Goldschmidt's going to be here. Enough with the Nolan Gorman shuffling. Put him at second base and let it go. Let him play every day. Enough. Stop it. Stop shuffling him in and out. He's got insane power. Put him at second base. Let it roll. Mason Wynn's your shortstop. Nolan Arenado's your third baseman. In the outfield, Lars Nootbaar's going to play every day. If Tyler O'Neill's healthy, he's going to play every day. Other than that, I mean, to me, everyone else is on the block. Jordan Walker, he plays every day. Nootbaar in center, Walker in right, Tyler O'Neill in left. You're going to need a good 4th outfielder, right? So, I don't know, take your pick. Is it Dylan Carlson? Take your pick on the 4th outfielder. I don't care who it is. That means to me, after those 9, your bench players are guys that can start in a pinch, that can step in an injury, but are not going to play every day. So that means Tommy Edman should be on the market. Brendan Donovan should be on the market. Alec Burleson, that guy's a glorified DH, on the market. Everyone outside of that starting 9, in other words, and by the way, I would say Knizner and Contreras. Listen. Let's see what's out there. So to me, Goldschmidt, Gorman, Wynn, Arenado, O'Neill, who has no value right now because he can't stay healthy, Nootbaar, Jordan Walker. Those 7 players are your nucleus on offense. Everyone else is up for grabs. Listen to offers and start remaking this pitching staff. Go sign a free agent and then make a couple of trades. You've got enough players that would generate interest to overhaul this staff. Arizona did it in 2 years. Texas did it in 2 years. They're in the World Series. You could start that this year by putting guys out there that have value. Tommy Edman would be valuable to somebody. Brendan Donovan would be valuable to somebody. Start. By the way, when you talk about this, you know, people will say, "Oh, but Tommy Edman, I mean, he's so valuable because he plays so many. We don't need someone who we need one guy on this roster that can play multiple positions. And we have a guy who just won the AA Player of the Year who will be in the majors soon who can do that. That's Thomas Saggese. We don't need multiple guys who can play 1,000 positions. We need one. Because when you have that on your team, now you're tempted to play them all the time. You're going to sacrifice your defense. You're going to move them around. You're going to move. Stop it. Put 9 guys out there and let them play every day. You've got Richie Palacios towards the end of the year that could be an extra outfielder. You've got Juan Yepes still in the minor leagues. That could be a guy on your bench that could come off the bench. I mean, and then you've got some speedsters who can play defense that are at AAA that can come up at some point next year. So, to me, I'd listen to offers for Contreras, Kisner, Herrera, who's another catcher, Edman, Donovan, Dylan Carlson. I'd listen to offers for all those guys. Keep your 7, Contreras, Gorman, Wynn, Arenado, O'Neill, Nootbaar, Walker. They play every day. Same positions, run them out there every day. And then fill in with some good bench players that don't necessarily need to play every day. Take that equation out of the manager's hands, and let's trade those guys who have a little value and go get. Now, out of all those utility players I mentioned, Brendan Donovan would be the guy I'd keep, not Tommy Edman, because Donovan's a left-handed bat who can play multiple positions and he gets on base. That's a no-brainer. But everyone else, now, look, he probably fetches you the most value as well in a trade. So, look, start over. And by the way, if the Cardinals want to shop Tyler O'Neill, good. Go. I just don't think O'Neill has the value because he keeps getting hurt. But, and he's an intriguing talent. When he was healthy, he was your best player a couple of years ago. So, look, I think, again, 6 or 7 guys that you go into next season and you go, these guys are playing every day. They're going to be in their positions playing every day, and that's it. Everyone else, let's see what we can get for them. And then you build the roster from the starting 6 or 7 out and go remake this pitching staff. Because, by the way, the pitching staff will make these guys better, right? So, look, Rangers did it with more with money. Diamondbacks did it in this way, trading, bringing up players from the minor leagues, all that stuff. That's the way I look at it. So it can be done. It's being proven right now. So I am, I'm optimistic. Look, this organization is excuse me, it's not going to be a 90-loss team 2 years in a row. It's not going to happen. It's not. Are they going to go out and spend big money on free agents? No. They may try to get one pitcher, but I think they're going to make trades for the other ones. And with what they did at the deadline last year, they have kind of restocked the minor leagues a little bit. Now you've got more to play with in the minors coming up for 2025, right? By 2025, if they do the right things this offseason, 2025 could be a big year because you'll have these minor league guys ready to take that step into the major leagues. You have a lot of young talent. So, yeah, I'm okay. Price from Let's Go Blues Radio is going to join me. We're going to talk Blues hockey in the next segment. I did want to talk about last week's Mizzou football game. Came out and just dominated South Carolina. You know, there were so many people in the St. Louis media before the season. What's Mizzou going to do? They don't have as good their coaches aren't as good. They don't have a young Billy Napier at Florida or a Shane Beamer at South Carolina. Yeah, Mizzou is better than South Carolina. Matter of fact, a lot better. They pounded South Carolina last year. They pounded them again this year. Dominated from the opening whistle. Mizzou has a bye week. They're going to be ranked right around 15th in the country when they play Georgia at Georgia next Saturday. Not this Saturday, next Saturday. Very interested to see how Florida-Georgia goes. They play this weekend. Florida and Georgia and Mizzou have already been picked as the number 1 game for SEC on November 4th. That's a 2:30 kickoff on CBS. Finally, Mizzou is on a CBS broadcast with a lot of meaning at Georgia on November 4th, who, by the way, is without their star tight end, who is going to be probably a first-round pick, hurt, gone 4 to 6 weeks, and he won't be playing in that game against Missouri. And, oh, my goodness, Missouri at Georgia, the winner of that game will be in first place in the SEC East. The winner of that game will be first place in the SEC East. Imagine that. That's going to be unbelievable. All right, we're going to take this time out. You're listening to The Mole Hole. On the other side of the break, Kurt Price from Let's Go Blues Radio.
El Potro Restaurant and Market, located at 6920 Manchester Avenue, 1 block east of McCausland, offers the finest variety of Mexican and Central American groceries and goods. El Potro Restaurant serves authentic Mexican and Central American cuisine, including daily specials, not to mention the best horchata and tastiest margaritas in St. Louis. Open 7 days a week. El Potro, 6920 Manchester Avenue, 1 block east of McCausland.
Are you a company who needs help recruiting and hiring full-time professionals in the areas of engineering or information technology? Then call Steve Tucker at Talent Edge. Steve has over 25 years experience in recruiting as a partner and can really give you the edge you need. Also, calling all candidates looking for new opportunities in engineering or IT. Steve will help match your skill set to the right opportunity. 314-276-0074 or check out Talent Edge at talentedgellc.net. Once again, 314-276-0074. Talent Edge. We are back in the Mole Hole. You're listening on KXOK, KWRH. Welcome to the show. Yeah, I was just saying before we get to Kirk Price, I mean, how big for Mizzou? 7-1. They get to play Georgia on November 4th in Athens. Every Mizzou fans, of course, do not allow themselves to dream. Mizzou fans are all like, well, there's our second loss of the year. I get it, man. We've had our heart ripped out so many times. But last year, Mizzou was winning in the middle of the fourth quarter against Georgia, the number 1 team in the country, before they let it slip away in the last 7 minutes. Can they hang in Athens? You know, my thought on that is always, I don't know that I can pick 5 teams in the country that would go into Athens and beat Georgia. I don't know that I could pick 2 teams that would do that. You look at the top teams at Michigan. Could they go in and beat Georgia at Georgia? Sure, they could, but I'd put my money on Georgia. Ohio State, same. I mean, in Athens. So it certainly wouldn't be a season ender if Mizzou lost at Georgia because there's so many meaningful games left. But the fact that we're even in this position, it makes me so happy for Mizzou football and the future of Coach Drink's team. So now, again, real quick, as you all know, Ryan Wingo, the 5-star recruit from St. Louis U High, chose Texas yesterday. And I can tell you that I was, of course, crestfallen, very upset about it. However, look, man, he's an 18-year-old kid who got a Brinks truck backed up to his back door by one of the elite programs in the country in terms of branding and name recognition. I mean, good for that kid, right? I mean, that kid's making a boatload of NIL money. And you know, Mizzou can now compete NIL-wise, but they're not going to compete with Texas, Alabama, Ohio State. Those programs are going to throw all the money. I will say this, and I'm going to say this real quick. Luther Burden, local product. He's at Mizzou. He's having a huge year. He's treated like royalty in Columbia. He is the king of Columbia right now. Everybody loves Luther Burden. When I announce him in the starting lineups, he gets a standing O. Every time he catches a pass, the crowd yells, Luther. The guy is the most popular player in Columbia right now. Ryan Wingo would have been the same. He would have been the same because Burden, after next year, will go to the NFL. Burden, as a sophomore, would have stepped into that limelight, and Ryan Wingo, local product, would have been a king in Columbia. He's going to be just another guy in Texas. And that's fine. That's fine. He's another guy with a lot of NIL money. Good for him. But Mookie Cooper went to Ohio State. He's from the St. Louis area. He went to Ohio State, got to Ohio State, and was like, I got to compete against guys who are either as good as me or better for the next 4 years. Nah, I'll go back home to Mizzou. He's back to Mizzou. Yeah, you can hope that the same thing happens for Ryan Wingo. I don't wish any ill will against him. I mean, this kid is got a bright future in front of him no matter where he plays college football. Good for him, and good luck at Texas. But, man, that hurt yesterday. I get tired of finishing second. I really do. I get tired of finishing second. All right. I'm off that for Mizzou football. Let's turn our attention. The St. Louis Blues season is well underway, 5 games in. The Blues sit at 2-2-1, 5 points after 5 games. And joining me now from Let's Go Blues Radio, it's Kurt Price. Kurt, thank you for joining the show.
Randy, always an honor and a pleasure. Thank you.
So let me ask you, before we get into how the season has started, within the first 5 games, talk about your thoughts on the Blues coming into the season. The way the roster was made up, who we had coming back, who we added, and what you thought the Blues would look like in this 2023-24 season.
Well, coming in, they didn't make a whole lot of changes from last season.
A season where they did not make the playoffs.
Right. Did not make the playoffs. Disappointed defensively and offensively. And they couldn't do a whole lot, with the roster defensively anyway, where they were kind of locked into what they had mostly because of the contracts, the way they had them all set up with no trade clauses mostly. But, you got Scott Brunovich, who is a young up-and-comer on defense who has yet to get see a minute of ice time this season, but he could be something different on defense. They get some ice time this season. They brought in Kevin Hayes, who is a center and should be, is a third line guy. Should have been a nice addition. Hasn't done a whole lot this season yet, but coming in, expectations for this team. If you're looking at the national guys, nobody's picking them to make the playoffs. Some guys are picking them to finish near the bottom, not with the bottom dwellers. So I think and my expectations personally were that they would probably fall short of the playoffs, but if they made the playoffs, then that would be a nice surprise. So they're kind of in a retool right now. But and actually, but the way they played so far, defensively, they're 2-2-1 with a record 2-2-1, and defensively they've been much improved, honestly, in a lot of ways. So that's something that you can hang your hat on so far this season, early going.
Kurt Price joining us from Let's Go Blues Radio. Kurt, okay, maybe it's. You dig into the analysis and the statistics and you're a lot more into the weeds than I am. But when I look at this defensive roster and I see names like Falk and Parayko and Krug and Letty, and am I overvaluing how good these players are? I mean, because to me, that seems like a group of very good to, at minimum solid to very good defensemen.
You've been listening to our show. Because I say that because that's kind of what I've been saying all along, is that the defense on paper should be better than it has been last season and a good chunk of the season before. They should be better. They're individually they're talented, But Krug had a bad year last season. Parayko had a bad year last season. Letty, the Letty contract, let's be honest, I'll die on the hill that at the time I understood why they went that direction with moving Perron and bringing in Letty and all that stuff. But that signing hasn't really worked out. They moved Wallman for Letty, and they really should have just kept Wallman because Wallman's a better defenseman. It was just a kind of a goofy situation. I understand why they did it at the time, but the guy they brought back in hasn't really worked out as well as they'd wanted to. Scandella hasn't looked the best, but to be honest, with the new defensive coach this season, Mike Weber, they brought in because they fired Mike Van Ryn from last season.
Right.
Rightfully so. We were like, on the show, we were like, this is not working with Mike Weber. You can't move many of the pieces on defense. You're stuck with the core on defense. So the only thing you can do is move Mike Weber. Get rid of the defensive coach because it was not working. And they finally did, and they brought in Mike Weber, and his new defensive scheme has seemed to have paid off so far. Now they're allowing a lot of shots, but most of those shots are from the outside. They're not allowing a lot of stuff in tight. They're not allowing the backdoor tap-ins. They're getting sticks in lanes. They're blocking more shots. A little more defensively responsible. The forwards are more defensively responsible. So they've got a new system, a new scheme that, early sample size, right, it's small, only 5 games. But, I think defensively they've been much improved over last season, which, like I said, if you see the shots on goal, you're going to be like, well, what? They've allowed a ton of shots on goal. They have. But, those quality of shots against have been cut down. So that's been a big deal. And it's helped out Bennington. And Bennington has been fantastic. And we harped on that last season a lot. People were all over Bennington. A lot of people were, especially the national guys who didn't actually watch the games. They would, his numbers are terrible. His numbers are awful. He's one of the worst goalies in the league. His numbers weren't very good. Byproduct of the team in front of him and how they played in front of him, and they were just allowing so many quality chances. So, and this season his numbers have been off the charts, and that's partly been because of the team in front of him. You put a decent defensive team in front of Jordan Binnington, and we've said this on our show many, many times, that he will put up good numbers, and he'll be a guy that is good enough for you to win.
It's not that dissimilar from when I talk about quarterbacks in college football or in the NFL. If you don't have an offensive line protecting you and you don't have time to throw to weapons and you don't have weapons that are any good, the quarterback's numbers, statistics will suffer. And I think it's a same principle for goaltenders, right? I mean, if your defense is not doing their job, how do you expect the goaltender to just, stand on his head and make, 40 saves a night? You know what I mean? Like I totally get that, because I do feel like you're right. When Binnington has a solid defensive unit in front of him, he's fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's team sport,
Yeah.
I mean, sports are in general, football, baseball, team sports, right? You need a full team playing, hitting on all cylinders to be successful most of the time. I guess in the NBA, you can win with a couple of high-end players, right? But and in hockey, it's different. You need a full team, all on the same page to be successful most of the time. I mean, there are very, very few exceptions, but this is it's evident by when you watch the games. You can just tell that the team has been better defensively, and the results are paying off as far as Bennington and his numbers go this season.
Kurt Price, Let's Go Blues Radio, joining us here in the Mole Hole this morning. So let me ask, I know the Blues have really struggled to score 11 goals in 5 games. Is this okay? I know it's 5 games in, so small sample size alert, but does this alarm you in any way, or do you feel like they have enough offensively that they'll get into a rhythm and a groove and they'll start putting the puck in the net?
I think the offense, you can analyze the offense like you kind of did the defense there, where, you look at these guys individually and you're like, wow, these guys should be performing better than they are. And Thomas and Kyrou are going to get their points. I think Shen needs to be a little more impactful on the scoreboard. He only has 1 assist this season. Kevin Hayes, the guy that brought in, I mentioned earlier, he hasn't done anything yet, and he needs to be a better presence on that third line. chip in a little bit more offensively. Every time you see him with the puck, he just looks kind of slow right now, looks uninvolved. Might just be taking him more time to get used to the players he's playing with right now for some chemistry, and it's just not there yet. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not really worried about the offense yet because it is a small sample size and they should be better. And they do have the two high-end guys, three actually, Kyrou Thomas and Bushnevich. And Bushnevich just came back from injury last game after missing a couple. So, he's a big loss. He's a big part of the offense. So, last season they were not good defensively, good offensively. So I guess in that respect, it has me a little like, hey, let's get going because we don't want this to turn into last season. But they just need to get more shots on net. I know that they, in the past, a couple seasons ago, they really preached quantity of shots over quality. And that really worked out for them because 2 seasons ago, they were a high-end offense. But it fell off the table last season. Perron's gone. So, but I'm still optimistic about this offense. They just need to get more pucks on net, more traffic, and hopefully the defense can continue to play the way it is, and the goaltending as well. And when the offense kind of steps up a little bit, then you'll see this team hopefully put up some more wins, put up some more points, and surprise some people.
How have the early on, how have you viewed in terms of the special teams, how they look, the power play, the penalty kill?
Well, power play has been neither one has been very good. The power play has been terrible. They just got their first power play goal of the season last game.
Right.
I think they're 1 for 13, something like 1 for 14.
Yeah. So is it was it a matter of, and we'll get to the penalty kill in a second. Is it a matter of just not getting enough quality shots, or is it just bad luck, or what's 1 for 13 is not a great start on the power play.
No. You want to be in the 20s, right?
Right.
In your power play, upper 20s, hopefully, for a good power play.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not anywhere near that. So it's the early on in the season they looked terrible on the power play the first game. Even though they got a point of it in the shootout, but and they looked better. They looked better as the seasons went on in the power play, to be honest. So that's coming around a little bit. Shots on net are everything, traffic in front, shots on net. And you got to, and this is the NHL. If you're a goalie in NHL and you see a shot, you're probably going to stop it. So you got to get traffic in front. You just got to go to the dirty areas, and they've got to get that done in front of that on the power play. Zone entry is important on the power play. You got to get set up, and teams are pressuring them on the power play. If a team's struggling on the power play, a team that is defending is going to pressure them hard and go after them hard on the power play instead of sit back in a little tight box. They're going to go after them a little more, and they're going to force the issue. They're going to force the team to cough it up, and that's kind of what's happened. So I'm not too concerned about the power play. We'll see how it goes, but penalty kill hasn't been much better. So special teams the Blues have played well 5-on-5, so that's been their strength so far. So power play and penalty kill need to get going if they're going to do anything this season in the division.
I guess if we're going to spin this in a positive way, power play hasn't looked good. Penalty kill hasn't looked good. They've only scored 11 goals, yet here they are 2-2-1. They're not 0-5. So if we're gonna look at it, they're finding at least ways to despite some deficiencies early, they're finding ways to at least win a couple of games, tie another. It's that's at least positive. Right?
Yeah. Oh no, 2-2-1. That's 500.
That's what I was going to say. 2-2-1 with a subpar power play and penalty kill, and not scoring a lot of goals, and they're still 2-2-1.
And it comes back to defensively. They've been pretty good defensively, and the goaltending's been there. So if you're good defensively and you have good goaltending, you're going to be in the games typically. So you can win with 2 or 3 goals. So and that's been key. So if you've got a couple elements, there's 3 elements, right? Offense, defense, and goaltending. If you've got 2 out of 3, you're in every game.
Right.
So they've got to get the offense going, and I think they will. Thompson, Kyrou, they're dynamic, elite players. They should be pushing 90 points this year, hopefully. So maybe we'll get lucky and one of them hits 100. That'd be amazing. But yeah. So and that's gonna be the line, right? Thomas, Kyrou, and Bushnevich offensively. So 2-2-1, not too bad. They play Calgary and Vancouver coming up this weekend, or actually tonight and tomorrow. So that's a nice little West Coast deal. So that we'll see how that goes.
Kurt Price, Let's Go Blues Radio, joining me here in the Mole Hole this morning. All right, 2 more questions. First, we know injuries are going to happen. Any sport, any year, you got to have depth. Anybody in the minor leagues that the Blues have that maybe Blues fans should keep an eye on if they get an opportunity this year?
Okay, that's a good question. Let's see. We got, there were some players in training camp that impressed. So Zach Dean impressed in camp. So he's a kid that probably not going to be called up this year, but something to look for next season or the season after. Paul Duke is kind of right there as far as a guy who is hopefully will contribute in the future offensively. So Nathan Walker is a guy that he's down there that we've seen in the past.
Yes.
So he's going to be an injury call up at some point probably. So and Mackenzie McEachern's back with the Blues, which I didn't really understand the signing. He's kind of a dime a dozen player, but he's a depth guy.
Right.
So if the Blues have a few injuries, he might get the call up too. So they got a few guys. Zach Dean and Paul Duke are kind of exciting guys right now. So and of course the first round number 10th overall draft pick the Blues had, Dalibor Dvorsky, just came over from his European league. Wasn't getting a lot of playing time over there. They brought him over here to get more playing time, and he's from what I hear, he's playing very well since he's been over here. So that's good for him. It's good for his development, but he's a couple years away yet.
Yeah. So really, no one really. What you're saying is, if I hearing this correctly, they've got some depth guys, but no impact guys in the minors ready to come in and step in this year.
I mean, not right now.
Yeah.
Not guys that are like, oh my gosh, let's get him up there here because he's going to just tear it up.
Right.
Not at their stage of development right now necessarily. Of course, you never know. You bring up a guy, you get surprised.
Mm-hmm.
Sports are funny that way. But I'd like to see Perunovic get some ice time. He's been here, but he hasn't dressed yet. So he's on the press box. Love to see Perunovic get in there. Maybe sit Scandella, maybe sit Tucker. They've had some rough games recently. So Perunovic is a guy who is an offensive-minded guy, right? He's a power play specialist, and this team is struggling on the power play. They're struggling offensively. Get him in there in hopes that and defensively that's his shortcoming. So I guess you're robbing Peter to pay Paul with the defense and the offense right now. But this way. Again, you can experiment a little with this team this season because expectations coming in, unfortunately, weren't really high. So get Perunovic in there, see what he can do. I mean, if you lose games, well, you may be losing games anyway.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, it'd be different. It'd be a little bit different story if this team were a cup contender and they were really deep in some areas and they had a guy like Perunovic who wasn't getting ice time because they were so deep and because they were, we're a cup contender. We gotta roll with the guys who got up here. But that's not exactly the case. So play him. I mean, he's your young offensive stud on defense. He's your cheaper version of Torrey Krug. That's So just see what you got and give him some ice time. He's played a handful of games up here, and I'd like to see what he can do over the long haul.
Question on Chief Craig Berube. If this team doesn't make the playoffs, is he on the hot seat?
Well, we talked about this on our show. I think if expectations were higher and they didn't make the playoffs, I think that's a scenario that could probably happen. But I think since the expectations for this team are what they are, and Doug Armstrong has come out and said, we're in a retool. We're in a retool. So if we don't make the playoffs and we're in a retool, I'm not sure how you can say that the team failed under Berube unless they just totally tank, right? I mean, Obviously there's missing the playoffs, and then there's missing the playoffs.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
So you don't want to. I mean, if they're near the bottom of the league and they're underperforming in a lot of areas, based on what you think how they should play the season, then yeah, I can see. Coaches are hired to be fired. So I mean, as nice a run as he's had here, last season was rough, and if this season is rough and we're near the bottom, I can see that being an issue and a question. I think Armstrong's job is fine. I don't think he's going anywhere.
Right.
I think Tom Stillman has the utmost confidence in him, and he's one of the best GMs in the NHL. Even though he did kind of make this mess on defense right now, that we're kind of as far as contract wise, and he couldn't really improve it too much in the offseason. That's his doing. Some people are ticked off about it, but grand scheme of things, and his whole body of work with Blues has been fantastic. Just GM'd his 1,000th game with the Blues last game, by the way. So congrats to him. That's a pretty big accomplishment. Not too many GMs get to do that.
Kurt, sorry, I lied. One more question.
Sure.
If the Blues are in, I'm just giving you a armchair GM question right now. If the Blues are in that precarious position where they're fighting for a last couple of playoff spots, right? And which with the team and the roster in place now, could be a real possibility where they are jockeying for one of the last seeds in the playoffs. Is this a team that is set up? Are they going to be able to make a move to land an impact player to make a run if they get in? Because as you know, NHL out of any other sport, once you get in, I mean, we saw it in 2019. Once you get in, I mean, you never know what's going to happen. So are they in a position contract-wise, and do you think they'd be in a position to make a move to go get an impact player? Or do you think they kind of stay the course and maybe move some veterans to rebuild the roster for next season and beyond? Like, that's a tough situation to be in if you're the Blues at this stage with this roster, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think if the Blues are in that position where they're close to they could make the playoffs, I think they'd obviously love to make the playoffs because that's revenue for the ownership and the team, and they can do more. They're spending to the cap, right? So they would love to actually get some of that money back with the playoff revenue, which is a lot of people don't really think about that, the playoff revenue, as far as making the playoffs. Like if they're on the fringe, make it or not make it. But they've got a guy like Scandella who is in the last year of a contract, and he's a defensive depth guy that some team may want. He's not going to bring anything in return,
right.
But that's a guy they could move if he were to waive his no trade and a modified no trade clause. I'm not sure how many teams he can say no to. I can look it up, but they got Verana, they got Kapanen on offense, who are on 1-year deals, and they are 1 year left on the deal, and they could go for somebody. They're nice depth offensive players, and I think they're both off to nice starts this season. So if they have a good season, they're somebody they can dangle out there to somebody. But I don't think they would make a move to improve themselves unless it's a minor move, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think they would make a big move to improve themselves for the playoffs if they had a shot to make it, if they're staying course with their retool. I know it's so easy for teams sometimes to come in and say, they change their mind. Oh, we're better than we thought we were going to be, and we're going to make a move. It's always possible, but I think they'd have to be pretty darn good this season for that to happen. If they're a fringe playoff team, if they're on the outside looking in with the trade deadline by a few points, I don't see them doing anything to hurt their future. I think that the future is key for them right now. They're not going to trade a good prospect. They're not going to, I can see them dumping a veteran on the last year of 1 year deal, something like that.
Yeah.
Like a Scandella, like a Bertuzzo, like a Kapanen or Verana or something like that. or maybe get Krug, because there was the rumor in the offseason, or not the rumor, they tried to get Krug to waive his no-trade clause in the offseason. He said no. So maybe he'd revisit the deadline. Maybe somebody want Torrey Krug, who's got 3 years after this year left on his contract.
Yeah.
So he's a name that he might change his mind. So we'll see. It all depends on how the season goes. It can get a long season. It can go a lot of different ways. So it'll be fun.
That's Kurt Price, Let's Go Blues Radio. Kurt, remind everybody where they can find Let's Go Blues Radio.
Let'sGoBlues.com. You can get all of our information on there. We do at LZB Radio is the show's handle on Twitter. We do live shows every week during the season and during the off season. Usually on Tuesday or Wednesday nights when the Blues do not play. We do a late night show about 9:15, 9:30. We get going. It's on YouTube live stream. So check us out. We do audience participation. You can jump in the chat and chat along with us and talk hockey, and we have a good time.
Awesome. Thank you again for joining the show, and as always for joining the show. Love having you on. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Randy. Have a good one.
Yep. That's Kurt Price, Let's Go Blues Radio. And he makes me smarter about the Blues. I am, as I've mentioned many times, I'm one of those hockey fans where I pay attention, I follow along, but then I really get into it once we get into January, February, and they start to make that playoff run. Until then, there's so many other sports that I follow and watch and analyze. But having Kurt on always makes me smarter about the Blues. So that's good. And yeah, I mean, look, a couple of positives. Look, if you're not scoring goals, you're not doing well in the power play, you're not doing well in the penalty kill, but you still won 2 of your 5 games and tied the other one. That's all right. That's, before Blues fans start freaking out, it's okay. It's an okay start. See what happens as the season goes on. All right. Don't forget, right here on KXOK Radio, Spanish language broadcast, 9:00 Sunday, St. Louis City versus Sporting KC, the I-70 MLS series. Yes. I love it. Oh gosh, I love it. How great is it? Honestly, how great is it that in the first year of what you hope to be a great rivalry, city rivalry for sure, between Kansas City and St. Louis, they get to play each other in the playoffs. I mean, it could not have laid out better for a rivalry like that. So 9:00 Sunday, right here on KXOK, Spanish language broadcast. Man, so much going on. I'll be very interested in the Georgia-Florida game because Mizzou plays Georgia the following week. And, of course, the World Series starts with by the way, Major League Baseball in their boardroom is like, Texas and Arizona. That's who's in our World Series. No California teams, no New York teams, no Chicago teams. They're like, ugh. But it should turn out to be a great series. And by the way, rooting for guys like Jordan Montgomery for the Rangers, former Cardinal, Adolis Garcia, who the Cardinals waived for nothing, who is the ALCS MVP. And Arizona, of course, for all you Cardinal fans that love Tommy Pham, he's in the World Series for Arizona. So a lot of, some former Cardinal interest there. And there you go. That's the show for this Thursday. You've been listening to The Mole Hole here on KXOK and KWRH, and we'll do it again next Thursday at 8:00. So long, everybody.
Todos los miércoles en punto de las 6 de la tarde y otra vez los jueves a las